Good morning, everybody. 9 a.m. on a Sunday means it's time for Lisa's Changing Perceptions right here on 216thenet.com, real life internet radio. And today, Lisa's Changing Perceptions is brought to you by Julie Adrianson Art.com. That's Julie Adrianson Art.com. We'll put that right here at the bottom for you. You can go click and visit, learn all about Julie. She is a watercolor artist specializing in animal, wildlife, and pet portraiture. Ladies, good morning. How are you?
Good morning from cloudy Colorado. That's weird to say.
It's rain. It's overcast here. It's gonna rain. It's supposed to rain here this morning. Welcome everybody. I'm Lisa with Lisa's Changing Perceptions. You can reach me at lisaschangingperceptions.com, Lisa's Changing Perceptions at Gmail, or you can always call or text 262-573-7055. We are still in Metaphysical month, which we will be for the month of October. And today I have my beautiful friend Julie, who is sponsoring the show. Thank you. And we're going to get to that in just a second and highlight you for a second here. I brought Julie on, and I like her being here at the beginning of the month because Julie is not only my friend, I'll cry. She is my gift from my husband.
As you are mine.
And she, although she's been faithful, she's had faith her whole life. There's some weirdness that has entered her life since our friendship began. And so she doesn't do readings and she doesn't do those things. That's true. But it has still affected her life. So I thought, you know what? She's a great person to have on and just talk about like the things that she's seen and learned and does and how it's changed her life. And it's just going to be honest chit-chat this morning. There is no topic other than metaphysical and faith and how things have changed Julie's life and our life together. And that's all it's going to be today. So we're not going to get tense. We're just going to get truthful. And first off, to highlight her, Julie is a fabulous watercolor artist, and we're going to show you some of her work. And please do, if you're looking, especially with the holidays coming. What a great gift. I have had Julie make watercolor portraits of personal pets over the years for people that I know. So Julie, Pete's showing your website up on the screen now. So Julie, you're represented as well by a gallery. Do you want to announce who that gallery is, where you're represented so that they could see that work?
Yes, I have a work in Broadway Contemporary Gallery in Lubbock, Texas. You can find them on Broadway Contemporary on Instagram and Facebook. And the owner of the gallery, her name is Janelle Spivey, an amazing, inspiring artist that was kind enough to reach out to me and ask if I would like to be a part of her new gallery. And of course I said, yes, yes, yes. The grand opening for that gallery is the first Friday, November 5th, grand opening. So if you're in Lubbock, Texas or near Lubbock, Texas, I will be there. And Chris and I are traveling there to be there for her grand opening. And it's very exciting stuff. So I'm happy to have my work in Texas with Janelle, along with several other handpicked artists from all over the country.
Beautiful. And Pete is showing some of your wildlife work as we speak. She does specialize in watercolors, as you can see with her pictures. There's the cow. I love the cow. So he's just showing some of your pictures there while we're talking here for a second. And Julie's sponsoring the show here today. So let's thank her by taking a look and maybe getting some holiday gifts, portraits. Julie, when somebody does wants a pet portrait, they send you a couple different pictures and you go from there, correct?
Exactly right. I ask people to send me whatever pictures they have, whatever pictures touch them that show the pet's spirit and personality and things, and I kind of take it from there. You can kind of see by my work, I rarely paint in realistic colors. I sort of, and I think I learned this from you, Lisa, as many things like we were talking about earlier, just affecting my life, sort of seeing colors in them that aren't maybe what we see on their face when we see a moose walking down the street, which happens here all the time. Actually, I don't, when I paint them, I don't normally just see them as brown. I see them as different colors. So sometimes when you work with a pet portrait artist, they'll have a standard palette that they'll use. My pets are all different because each one of them, I see a different color in them, or they show me a different color in them. So who knew your rescue pet's favorite color could be purple?
Well, and that's what's funny is because as you're talking, I'm inside going, and look at Julie, doesn't even realize that that's called aura reading.
I can't believe you just said that, because I'm listening to a series of books about a psychic. It's one of those cozy mysteries because I'm afraid of everything. And she's talking about aura reading, and I'm thinking to myself, I can learn to do that.
Oh, because you already know how to do that.
See,
What do you think you're doing when you do these portraits? You're reading their personalities, you're reading their aura, you're reading their energies. And that's why they come across in the colors that they do to you versus standard colors. Look at Julie, the aura reader.
Look at me go.
See, that's why you're the perfect person to have on here first, because you don't even realize, but you're the person who just lives their life with it. And I think there's a lot of people who will hear you and go, oh, that's what that is, or that's what that does. Because what Julie just figured out recently in one of our conversations is that she is also an animal empath, which is why she tends to draw to animals. Do you want to tell the story about how we discovered that, the conversation we had about the bull?
We have so many. Now that Lisa and I work together every day, we have conversations every day. Oh. Okay. So the bull. So when Chris and I moved to Colorado 7 years ago, number one, I don't know that I would have ever recognized the push I was getting to do that had it not have been for Lisa's insight and just many talks over coffee. Cheers to you. In my little coffee shop in Lake Villa. But I moved to a little town called Carbondale, Colorado, in the Aspen Valley, the Roaring Fork Valley. And we lived in a ranching community called Missouri Heights. And I would run, and I don't mean run, I mean just kind of run in my neighborhood. And I was going down the road, and I saw this gigantic bull, and he was beautiful, handsome, and he's mooing in his baritone mooing, and I'm like, who's he talking to? He can't be talking to me. And I looked across the street, and there's 3 chicks across the street. He's trying to get a date. And, I stood and talked to him for a long time. I didn't know anybody in Colorado, so I had llamas for best friends, bulls for best friends. These are, horses that I would go and love up on every day. And his name was Omega. And Omega, he was a beef cattle, and he was with them for a super long time. And I made friends with him, and I actually painted him for his owner after Omega had left us. But it was a difficult. I cried the whole time I painted that portrait.
Because she told me one day when we were talking, and we do work for the same place for our daytime gig, and she told me one day how she said, I used to run past him and I would know what he was saying to me, and I would know things that he was thinking. And she said, it's just weird. Is that weird? And to some people that might be weird, and to me, I'm like, no, that's the animal empath in you, that you actually hear them and see them and can read their facial expressions and know what they're saying. And there's lots of things that she does that she doesn't even realize that she does. And that's why, like I said, I thought you'd be the perfect person to have on, because people with this thing, whatever this thing is you want to call, I always say so-called gift, because Julie knows that it affects my life in negative and positive ways. Everybody has these things. It's just that sometimes we don't realize what they are. Sometimes it's not exposed. Sometimes people who do these things like to put themselves on a platform saying, I'm the gifted. And I've just never believed that. I'm like, no, I'm just the one who ripped the gift open and jumped in the box. But some of you were smarter than me and left yours closed. It depends on how you look at it. And the animal empath in her and the colors that she sees, and that's aura reading. So it's funny. I'm glad you brought up that today, because we hadn't actually talked about that. So I didn't realize, that's aura reading. You're aura reading when you paint. And you're reading their personalities and their feelings and their emotions. And So when people send pictures of them that touch their heart, it's because those are moments when the animal was feeling certain things and you're seeing the feeling in that. And that's why your artwork, when you send it, touches people. Um,
It's funny because I get that. I get that, and I would call it more of a responsibility than a gift. Um,
it can be.
it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I used to also live across the street from a pasture that Ted would put his cattle out into, and it was moms and babies. And I would sit and watch them, and it was amazing the community they had. They had a designated babysitter. Of course, every calf had a mom, but during the day, the babysitter would sit in the middle and the calves would sit around. And I know, again, lots of times people think we're crazy, Lisa, but we know these things to be true, right? And I would listen to them, and I could, it was crazy because, of course, they had to be separated at one point, and then it was all that drama and sadness and departure, and then the healing from that. And it's pretty amazing what's going on in the world if you learn or are inclined to pay attention.
Right. So, and I guess we should go back to real quick so that people understand why where we got this at this place together with this is that years ago, and I don't even remember how many years ago now. It was long. It was before I was even doing this stuff. Really, I think.
Absolutely
Um,
true.
I wrote some through after my grandma's passing. So it was around the time I was really opening up to this stuff. It was around my grandma's passing. I wrote wording for some, I call them sentiment cards. People might call them greeting cards, whatever. But, my husband really liked them. And it was just an urge that I did. And I said, I really need somebody to paint some angels for these. And Julie will attest, I cannot draw stick people.
I can verify that.
And I was telling my husband about it. And he said, oh, my friend Julie, she could do it. You'll love Julie. And so I got a hold of Julie because they went to high school together. She went to high school with my late husband. And we just kind of hit it off and kind of ventured out from there. And for those of you, we've talked about it on the air. If you go on Amazon, you'll find a book that we did. It's a children's coloring book on grief. You'll find that on there too. And Julie did the illustrations in there for the kids to color while they read and learn about grief, and for parents to read with them. And Julie painted all the angels on the sentiment cards, which I was going to actually bring some today because I'm really bad about advertising them. I'm terrible that way. But Julie and I are kind of talking about maybe redoing them a little bit and modernizing them a little bit because they got to be 12, 13 years, 10 years.
Well, I don't know how that can be. We're only 22.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were early bloomers.
And
yeah, they have to be at least a dozen years old.
Yeah, they've got to be. I was trying to think of it the other day, and we kind of got together and we became friends. And Julie used to own Julie's Coffee and Art in Lake Villa. And after my husband, I mean, before he passed, we chatted a lot. But after my husband passed, she was one of my sanctuaries, and we would just sit in there all day over coffee and talk about stuff. And we don't have a lot of secrets between the two of us, and we would just talk about the truth behind stuff. And some days we'd laugh and some days we'd cry and have all these things. And I would always tell her the truth of the crazy weirdness of the metaphysical, because by then I had really opened up to it all. When my husband had passed, I was already opened up to it all and was doing it and had already been doing readings and things. And so I'd go in the coffee shop and we'd talk about it. And then all of a sudden Julie would start, she's so funny because she'd go and she'd like jolt to be like, oh my God, this just happened. Oh my God, that's what that is. And it would be so exciting. And now I hear her talk about when she runs and who she talks to. And people have different idea of what prayer is. And just those things, the things that have happened. And it's funny because now my husband, now that she's open, my late husband likes to visit her and make his presence known. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about that kind of stuff. What do you do when you run? That's always interesting to me because of how you say it. So I'm not going to explain it. I want you to. When you run and you have a problem, what do you do?
Well, I just talk when I run. So I have an open dialogue with, I was raised Catholic. I went to Prince Priest grade school. I've always had a very, very strong belief. It's my, I guess, the basis of my whole being. And when you're by yourself, which I never was by myself until I moved to Colorado. I know that sounds strange, but when you live in the same small town your whole life and
Yeah, we grew up in a town that was like the size of a shoebox until
Yeah.
now it's bigger, but it was about the size of a shoebox back then.
Right. I spent very little time by myself. And I think in the last 7 years, I spent more time by myself than I did in the first 50. Um, I just have an open dialogue and I talk the whole time I run to I talk to God. I don't know why I feel apologetic about, I feel when I say that, I feel like, oh, as if God would have time to talk to me while I'm running. You
I
know?
know one day, and one day you said to me, Lisa, am I crazy? Because sometimes I hear him answer.
Oh, it's a conversation. And it's scary. I have to say, the first time it ever happened to me, actually, it was in Lake Villa because I was running and I was talking about another dear friend of mine that was having a hard time getting pregnant. And I said, I just don't understand why this is so hard. She's such a nice person. She's such a hard worker. She's such a great wife. She's such a great cook. She's going to be such a great mom. And I have goosebumps. I remember it in my head. This is her story, not your story, but out of it. You don't have any control over this. This is her story. And that was it. And you
Then
know
you
what?
your answer, right?
I butted out of it. I'm like, okay, I just wanted to make sure you heard me. And I'm like, holy crap.
Somebody responded.
And sort of ever since then, more so here, just because I have more quiet time, I have back and forths. And I used to have them all the time when I was driving home from work, because I drive from Snowmass to Carbondale, and it was a 45-minute drive. And I would teach art classes in Aspen and things, and it would be at night, and I would be scared. And you kind of just open up the channel, and then you have all these conversations. And I would ask anything I wanted. Like you can ask anything you want. And then you think to yourself, it's in, like, I hear it in my voice, but it isn't me talking. Like when Don pays me a
Right.
visit, you know what I mean? I know. And it kind of, even to this day, but now I know I love Don. I've known Don since we were kids, but I know that it's him because he'll say, make sure she knows da 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 da. And it isn't something I would say, or maybe it was something I would say, but it isn't the way I would.
Right. But they put it in a terminology that's identifiable or a different wording. And that's the thing. And when God's spirit, I don't, whatever word people choose to use is a personal thing, and that's fine. And just this weekend, there was a series of events that took place and coincidences. And Julian, I don't believe in coincidence.
Not anymore.
So there were some coincidences. Somebody had made a really hard decision. Somebody close to me made a very hard decision. And they finally decided to do something that was really difficult that they probably should have been doing for a while, and they knew, but they committed to it in their heart and soul. And over 24 hours, some weird coincidences happened that were completely to their benefit. And I was there to witness all of them. And I kept saying, that's God. There's a misconception that God or spirit or whatever word you want to use is winning the lottery and making life easy and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not it at all. Those things happen, but there's always a lesson and there's always something to learn. And even a lesson doesn't mean punishment. There's always learning in it. And I said, God helps you when your heart changes. And so I said, this is God. God feels your heart change. God feels your commitment. And so God's spirit, like I said, whichever, but replace the word with whatever you choose, said, I see your heart change and I see your commitment. And here I'm here to help you. It's not to take it away, because then you take away the learning, but I'm here with you. I'm going to help you along the path now. I see your commitment to this. And that's where I think people miss it. And they think it's only meant for people with the gift or, with the whatever. And it's like, no, it's sometimes those little blessings or those little so-called coincidences that say, holy crap, since that happened, now this is happening. And it's the roll, the steady pace, but you still have to do the work, because the work is where the learning is, where the growth is. And had you not done the self-reflection and taken the dive for the move, and taking a big risk. You took a big risk to move. People I guess don't realize this, and I'll say it is Julie had lived in the same town her whole entire life. Her family was well known in the town. She was well rooted in the town, and one day said, "All right, I'm going to do this." And literally, I remember going to her house and she was sitting in her kitchen getting rid of the last of her furniture as she literally said, "I'm done," and packed up a little trailer and her husband. She had to bring him by law. I
I
love
think
you,
he's
Chris.
handsome.
I always refer to him as the man she has to keep around by law now. And I love him dearly. It's just a joke between Chris and I. We are always sparring.
And you've known Chris since you were a little kid.
In school, yeah. So I knew Chris before Julie, and they packed up a little trailer and went on their way. And Julie went from a phenomenally large and beautiful home where she had lived. Julie, talk about what the risk you took and what you did to get to Colorado and where you moved into when you first got there. You guys want to say everybody's afraid to give up things, that things matter. And Julie gave up all her things to follow her dream. And how did that work, Jules?
So when we decided, or I don't know, I'd like to say that you taught me, if you listen, you learn early and it's less painful. If you don't listen, they give you a knock on the head. If you really don't listen, they throw you on the ground. I got thrown on the ground.
And they drive the bus back and forth all over you.
Right. They do a little burnout on you. That's what happened to me. But we packed up everything. I sold everything. I was giving mix masters to strangers walking down my sidewalk because we worked literally. We moved from our house. In our house, we built our house ourselves. We used to build houses. My family built houses in Lake County. And we built our own house. So it was a regular 2,000 square foot house that everybody kind of has in the Midwest. They're very, very lucky and blessed and fortunate enough to have. And we moved into a 450 square foot studio in Carbondale, Colorado. Ooh. I always joke that I could sit on the pot and do the dishes at the same time, which I never did, but it was that little. And we were very blessed in that studio. I'm just saying it was legit. Found a nice woman who had passed through Chicago, spent some time in Chicago in her life. Her name is Susan, and a dear friend for life. She took us in. And our two dogs, it's hard to find a place to rent with two middle-aged people.
In her 400 square foot.
In her 400, yeah, and looked out
her legal husband,
right? Chris and the whole shipment. Yeah, it was insane. So I remember, and Lisa calls them, things or possessions. I have whittled that down to stuff. The word stuff describes it. For me, I was very attached to my stuff. I worked very hard for my stuff, and I had a lot of my stuff for my whole life, like we all do, right? And you accumulate this stuff. I mean, we have a daughter, we had stuff for Amber, we had stuff to have everybody over for every Thanksgiving, every holiday, everything with sit down dinner for 22, because that's just how I do things. And we got rid of everything. And I remember having the conscious thought in the middle of Nebraska, in my Jeep with my two dogs in the back, Maggie and Gage, Chris following me in his truck, holding my white knuckling it. Oh my God, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm alive. I don't have my home. I don't have my stuff. I don't have anything but my two dogs, my husband, and I'm still here. And it's amazing what you can lose and what you can give away and give up and still be here. And I think for me, it was really this is so corny, the first day of the rest of my life. I grew up when I was 50 years old. And this is another talking things into reality and speaking your truth and thoughts become into things. Anything you want to say. I always said, I will move from this town when I'm 50 years old. And everybody said, Jules, you'll never move out of Lake Villa. It was village politics, business owner, family business, just everything you can ever.
And your husband was a firefighter and
Chris was a firefighter.
They were well rooted into their town.
Yeah. I mean, we made a difference, and that's what you want to do in life, right? Is make a difference. And we did that. And things lined up in our lives. And, when you sell your home, the buyer always picks the closing date. She picked October 17th, my 50th birthday.
Wow.
So
So-called
I was driving. Huh?
So-called coincidence.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I'm driving on my 50th birthday, and I thought, and that's one of those things like, holy crap, that is another one of those things.
It
So,
happened.
yeah, write it down, speak it out loud, tell your friends.
Right. And don't be afraid to. And I think that a lot of people fear that. Um, and it's weird because sometimes people fear that they'll say something and then it doesn't happen. Well, so what? By not saying it, you're almost guaranteeing it's not going to happen. By not believing it, you're almost guaranteeing it's not going to happen. Speak it out there. Who cares?
Yeah.
So how did you had 50 years of roots in a town, and like I said, genuine roots. It was politics. It was businesses. It was her husband was a firefighter. I mean, it was her whole life was there. And you had things that were of sentiment and things that were family and things that there were all those things in your whole life. And you literally drove away with a trailer, 2 dogs, and the man you have to keep. Right?
Yep. And it
And how
turns
did it
out
feel when you
that's all I
realized,
needed.
huh?
It turns out that's all I needed.
That's
You know?
exactly what I was going to ask you. How did it feel to not have the, in truth, burden of all of those things anymore? Debt and things and all of it that weighed you down.
It really is an amazing feeling, and I think we've had a couple different moves since we've been here, and gotten rid of things as we went. And it seems that the more you get rid of, the better you feel, because you're less tied, and I don't mean rooted. I
Right.
mean, rooted is good, tied is different.
Right.
And to realize the difference in those things is very liberating, and it makes you able to bob and weave to get what you want, and to be able to be open to what you want. And yeah, the answer is it's good.
Because you're rooted in your marriage, you're rooted in your parenting, you're rooted in your artwork, you're rooted in who you are. But that's different than being rooted and burdened and weighed down by things. Not that we don't all want nice houses and nice cars and nice things. That it's the have tos or the belief that those things are what life is.
Well,
Um,
it's the have tos and the beliefs that those things identify you. They're your
right.
identity.
Or
I
your
mean,
value, right?
yeah, I mean, if you were to ask somebody, who are you? Would they say, well, my name is Julie, and I live in a 2,000 square foot house with a 3-car garage, and I have a fenced in yard, and I have this job, and I have this much money in the bank, or not, or whatever? Or would they say, well, I'm an artist, and I'm a friend, and I'm a stepmom,
Right.
and I'm a wife, and I love
I'm a person
people?
and everything, and I'm happy that I'm happy. That would
Yeah.
be the greatest thing for us all to be able to answer that question with when, who are you? I'm happy.
Yeah, you got to shed a lot of stuff in order to see that. And it's, I'm no braver than anybody else. And it's scary. I mean, when you move to a whole new place and you literally do not recognize a face, which was absolutely foreign for Chris and I hugged the mail carrier at the city market because I recognized it. She thought I was weird. I just needed to see someone that I knew. I recognized your face. But yeah, and I mean, a whole new start maybe isn't right for everyone. It was right for me.
What made you know that?
That a whole new start was right for me because
Right.
I needed to find out. I needed to know if I could make it on my own. I needed to know that I was worth. I need to know if I had the. If I had the. I need to know if I had the stones to make it. I
I
needed.
was just gonna say go ahead. So yeah, go ahead. This is
Yeah,
we're
okay.
not FCC regulated. Speak
All
up.
right.
You're fine.
That's the bottom line. And I needed to know that who I was me, and not my family and our history and what we had built, which of course was all us. Not to discredit, there's nothing about that. All hard work, all dedication, all faith, all family accomplished what that is. But I needed to know that in myself. When I was 39 years old, my parents told me I was adopted. And
Wow.
it gave me a feeling of I don't even know who I am. And of course, my dad, well, you're Julie and you're my daughter. And I know that. I know that. And I am. And I always will be. And I'm not thankful for that in my whole life. But it was it was an awakening to me. And when I looked for my birth mom and I found her and I found my whole family that is one of the greatest gifts of my life, then I set out to find out a little more. You know what I mean? Find out what my DNA is, what I can do with what I've been given, in my soul. So yeah. So I took
That's
off.
an interesting story, because if you're okay with sharing it,
Yeah.
when you went to find your birth family, what did you discover? Because this is really interesting. As far as I know, we're talking metaphysics, but you know that I do the other part of things too, the psychology, the DNA, the histories of families and what have you. What did you discover when you found your birth family?
Um, when I found my birth family, I found my mom, my birth mom, my stepdad, Bob, who is a Chicago guy by coincidence. But I get not by I can't believe I just said it. I was made in Alaska, born in Lake Forest. And when I found her, I found my two brothers, David and Chris, um, 13 years younger than me, and my beautiful sister, Carolyn, 10 years younger than me. Chris and I went to go visit them after I started talking to her. And we we landed in the Anchorage airport. Like, I don't even know where I am, Anchorage. This is years and years ago. And I walked in to that house, to Mary Jo and Bob's house. All the kids were in the back on the deck. And I walked in and the circle opened. And Chris and I walked into the circle and the circle closed. And it was never a awkward conversation or an awkward moment. I mean, I was 42 years old when I met them. And I realized that there are people that are your tribe or have your same soul or have your same, can I say aura? Your same
Yeah,
thing.
whatever you choose.
You mesh in with them, and it's a feeling I've never felt, and no family is more valuable or loved to me. To me, there's enough love for everyone, anywhere, at any dinner party, anywhere. But it was an experience that I wasn't expecting in my life, but I got and I embraced. And I am in no way discrediting, or I'm very aware that other people have not had the experience I've had with adoption and finding their birth family. But I think it's a leap that you owe yourself to take to try. Chris said to me, when I wrote my letter to Mary Jo, when we found her online and I wrote my letter, I put all my skinniest 3/4 view pictures in it. And I told her that in the letter that my name is Julie and you don't know me, but you might know about me more than I know. I told her about my wonderful family and my blessed life. And I was a hard worker and an artist, and I was blessed with a stepdaughter and my husband and all my stuff. I thought I had one shot, because she had no obligation to reach out to me or love me or welcome me at all. And I was well aware of that, but it was scary, right? So I'm sitting in the parking lot at the Lakeville Post Office and making sure she's a teacher. So, pardon me, I want to make sure everything was spelled right, my best handwriting. Chris, I thought, I had to put my best foot forward all the time in life, but for sure this moment. And Chris met me there, and he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, Jules, if you never hear from her, your life would never change. You'll have me and Amber, your mom and dad, your sister, your whole family, and all your friends. He said, so it can only add to your life. It can never take away.
That's brilliant.
Oh, all right, Chris. I got to be nice to you for like an hour
Yeah.
for that one.
So I sent the letter down. I sent the letter down the pipe, having no idea how long it took letters to get to Anchorage, Alaska. I don't know. I had a very small world at that time. My world's so big now, but I had a very small world. And I got an email about 10 days later And it came from mkid@gci.net. And I knew GCI was the email carrier in whatever that is in Anchorage. And her opening line was, "Oh, sweet child, I can't believe this day is finally here."
Wow.
So, yeah, she is. I'm so lucky. And, you find your tribe, you find your soul people. And as I said, no family is more valuable to me, but it's amazing when you walk into a group of people and you look into your own eyes. My niece, my brother Chris's daughter is my double. We look exactly the same.
Really?
Yeah, and me not
Trina's
having.
asking you to be a regular. She loves your authenticity.
Thanks. I'd love to be on. I'd love to be a regular. Aislinn, she, it's unbelievable when you look at somebody that you look like. And I don't have my own. Amber's my stepdaughter. I don't have my own children, so it's pretty big deal. And I hope that after whoever's listening looks at their children and realizes how blessed you are to have somebody in the world that looks like you.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yes, Julie's Shayna, thank you, because Julie's always authentic. I have often tried to talk Julie into doing her own show on art and seeing and coloring and different topics. Not quite there yet. She leads a little bit of a busy life. Julie's also a wedding officiant, so
Yeah.
she does some pretty phenomenal weddings on mountaintops. She posts some pictures of them. She literally has to hike to do her weddings to the tops of mountains and does weddings up there on the top of mountaintops.
Which, just circling back to that whole story, I have my brother Chris to thank for that whole career, because he married Tracy, my beautiful sister-in-law, and called me in Lake Villa from Anchorage. He's a detective in the Anchorage Police Department, and said, "Julie, Tracy and I are getting married. Will you officiate the wedding?" I'm thinking of Father Fastbinder. "Oh, no, you can't." And he said, "Oh, yes, you can." So I did. I got ordained online and went up and officiated that wedding. It's all the pictures are on my Facebook page, Julie Adrianson Weddings, and same page on Instagram if you want to visit and see some happy love pictures. Came back to Lake Villa and it was like, "Jules, you could marry us?" I'm like, "I can." And that's how it happened.
And now it's literally part of her career. If you check her out, it's really phenomenal that she literally hikes to mountaintops and does weddings for people in Colorado in the Rockies.
Yeah.
And they're amazing pictures that she does. And so it's kind of funny because I as we're talking about that, I'm thinking back to a day that we were sitting in the coffee shop when you were in Lake Villa, and you were telling me about a little piece of land you and Chris had in Colorado and how you dreamed to always live there, but you knew you never would. And the whole gamut of it would be so nice, but I don't think we'll ever be able to, just those conversations when life was hard. And so now look at you go. And now you're doing weddings on rooftop or on mountaintops. They're rooftops because I'm not going up there,
I
but
know.
weddings on mountaintops and artwork of wildlife in your now your regular nature land, and you're living where you wanted to live. And it all took in truth, you're an example of an incredible leap of faith by saying things don't matter to me anymore. Things are just things. What matters to me is finding my own happy, finding my own place, finding my own spirit. And how much, yeah, we can bring this up. And a lot of it is, now we get into the metaphysical part of it a little bit more. A lot of it is forgiving ourselves and realizing that we, regardless of what mistakes we feel or failures we feel, whether it be our mental, emotional, physical, whatever it is, no matter how we've seen ourselves, saying, you know what, I'm worth a new start. I'm worth it. No matter what I've done, I'm worth it. And people think that happens in an instant, and it does. And I have this conversation with people all the time. Life changes in an instant. And people will say, no, I had to think about it forever. That's the preparation, the decision making. But there's an instant moment that the decision is made. And it's a hard process to get there sometimes. But she went from sitting in that coffee shop exhausted because she would get there, long before, it's kind of like it's time to make the donuts kind of person. She's in there getting the coffee shop ready and and everything that she did. And she was exhausted, and she was still teaching art classes and still, all the other things that she did out of the shop. It was a really cool shop. I still wish it was here. It was an amazing shop that she had. And you being sure that you would never make it to Colorado. And then over time, just things happening, so-called coincidences and signs, and truthfully, a lot of pressure that made it so uncomfortable for her that she finally said, this is things. And I'm dying under these things, these physical things that they're killing me. They're smothering me. And she took what's in truth the decision that was made in an instant of this is no more, and got rid of all the physical things and said, now I'm free. And it was scary. And that's what I mean by people think that God or spirit or metaphysics or dead people, whatever you want to look at it, all the different aspects of it, means that, oh my gosh, I prayed and I got the lottery, or I prayed and I got my car, or I prayed. That's part of it. Those are little pieces of it. But this is the real deal. This is the real, holy crap, I did some soul searching here, and I'm going to take a leap of faith, true faith, that says, screw it all. It's all gone, and I'm either going to have nothing or I'm going to make it. But in truth, before you did that, when you were holding on to the physical things, the vision of success, the vision of personality, the vision of the face we have to put on, was that life? Was that really living?
I mean, no.
So what are you really losing besides things?
That's the whole thing, and true, right? My life, I had a great life in Lake Villa, and I have lifelong friends, you included, Lisa, and soulmates and people that they were my whole world. Here's the thing. When you move somewhere and you get rid of all the noise and those people you love come to see you, the time you spend with them is so much better because you're not thinking about your job and you don't have to call and do this and whatever. There's value in walking away. Lisa, I know you spend a lot of time in the woods, right? You spend time in the woods. So yeah. That's where you talk to who you talk to and things. Realize the value in stepping out of the noise and by yourself or taking someone you love or value. I mean, we're busy people, right? Especially when you live in the Midwest, man, we're busy. We go 24/7. We work, we have jobs, we own businesses, we have kids, we have soccer, we have this and that. When are we worth stepping away from all the noise and going to somewhere quiet? Do we want to? Are we scared to? What will we hear?
It's scary.
It's
scary because what if we actually find out the truth, and what if the truth makes us accountable for our own bullshit?
Well, yeah.
What if we find out we're the problem?
Right. And and we are. I mean, I'm telling you, we are, because I swore when I moved to Colorado, I made, declarations. I'm not going to be busy. I'm not going to fill every moment of my day. I'm not going to have 14 jobs. Guess what? I brought me.
Right.
And so you're forced to take a long, hard look at what a PIA you really are.
And Shayna has a question for you. That's a really good question. I know the answer to it, but I'm going to let you answer it in your beautiful way.
Hi, Shayna.
She said, Julie, were there people that you had to be released when you made your leap of faith?
Oh, God, yes. Yeah. And that's the most painful thing of all, because we are tied, and you never want to think, how do I say this without hurting anyone's feelings? You never want to think of people in your life as limiting, Shayna. You never want to think that. And probably, maybe they aren't if you put them in a different box in your life, right?
Another perspective of them.
Yeah, you have to compartmentalize your life. And along with those compartments contain people. And you give them the best of what they need, and you hope that they return the best of what they have to offer. Sometimes people aren't offering the best of what you need. They may have the best intentions and think that it's the best of what you need, but maybe it isn't.
And there's a thing, and there's an example I give when I talk in groups and what have you about this topic is, Julie, the people that you had to recategorize because they weren't allowing you to live the life that you finally realized that you wanted and deserved, did it mean you love them less?
No.
Right. That's the
And
misconception.
right. And it often, Shayna, and this could be something you're scared of, because I'm still scared of it, that they misconceive that they misconceive you not loving them anymore because you're doing something that you know you have to do to make your life better. Not at all true. You can love someone with your whole heart and soul
And
and
walk away.
release, right, and release them to live their story. And then you can't sit in judgment of them, though. That's a two-way street, right? If you're releasing their judgment of you, then you release your judgment of them. Because let's face it,
And
if
just
someone, if
allow.
you, right, you allow it, and that's part of life, right? But that's a hard part, man. It's hard.
It's a concept that people have a hard time with, is that you can love somebody and walk away, um, because they don't offer what it is. But our society has taught us that because of DNA, or jobs or success, whatever is attached to it, that we're now obligated to something or somebody for life. And also that cutting a tie, so to speak, because it is an energetic tie, means that it has to be brutal and vile. And truthfully, people do it brutally and vilely because it makes it in a short term less painful in the moment
Mm-hmm.
than the truth of, I love you, but your choices limit me and harm me, and my anger about it limits you and harms you. I love you, and walk away.
Yeah.
And that's allowed to be done. That's okay to be done. Um, I've talked about it on the air before, and my father and I had a disgruntled relationship, especially towards the end. And people, you don't love your dad. I absolutely do. My dad did the best he could with what he had and what he knew. But there came a point in life when it was no longer something that was allowing me to bloom and go where I needed to go. He didn't believe in what I do. He struggled with those things. But there was not hate. There's anger. There's childhood growing up. There's those little things that we carry. But no, there wasn't hate. But I needed to bloom in a direction that wasn't accepted by, in truth, other than my mother and my daughters and I have one cousin, um, wasn't accepted by anybody in the family. They all thought I belonged in a padded room for the most part. And it didn't mean I loved anybody less, but it's time for me to do what I need to do. It's time for me to go be who I need to be. And they still don't agree with my choices, and they still don't always understand the things that I do or how things happen to me that keep me in situations that are difficult or struggling. And even in those situations, they've brought me to where I need to go, and I need to go that. But I have my own journey as well. And this is part of it. And sometimes I kick my own ass, and sometimes I'm shoved into the fire, but that's all kind of part of it. And it doesn't mean you love anybody any less, but there comes a point when you say, you know what, my journey and my path and my place of happiness and my place of feeling whole again and self-forgiveness comes in a place where you spoil the pot, and your choices spoil the pot. And I give you freedom to go be who it is you choose to be. I no longer offer you opportunity to tarnish who I am and who I choose to be.
And I
But it
think you
doesn't have
said,
to be vile.
right. And you said the right word, Lisa. It's forgiveness, right? I never learned the concept of, you read all this stuff, and I read a ton of stuff, and more so now that I know Lisa and love Lisa, and she's a permanent fixture in my life. So that idea of forgiveness, right? I never understood the concept of forgive them for you, not for them. Like, I don't even know what that
Yeah, that sounds
means.
like horse shit at first.
That's the dumbest. That's the biggest load of BS I ever heard. And sometimes people do some outrageous things. You may do some outrageous things to people that you didn't intend. Maybe you did. Everybody's different. Everyone's got their own thing. But when you step out of the noise and you realize that forgiveness is for you, it is for you to have the freedom to go on. When you're angry at somebody, man, it's limiting. It's weighing down. You think that Mixmaster weighs a lot to carry down the street. Try carrying down a boatload of anger for someone that you
Anger
love.
and guilt, right?
Yeah, it's a bummer, man. It's a bummer. You can't run with it. You can't walk with it. You can't drive with it because it's always here. This is the stuff that'll take you down, the stuff in the back of your head and your heart. When you say, I don't necessarily like what you're doing or the decisions you've made, but I love you in spite of it, it's freeing. There he is.
So
There's
I'm a mile and a
Julie's
half
required
away
to
with the
keep around.
dog. I'm a mile and a half away with the dog, and Lisa says she owes me an hour of kindness. So I ran back as fast as I could, and I have my phone. I'd like to pencil this in when that might happen.
Well, I was just going to say, Chris, I didn't say what hour that would be.
Oh,
You're a little hasty.
maybe it's like
You're a little
2 or
hasty,
3
bud.
minutes every once in a while.
She
Okay,
didn't say consecutive.
right.
Oh,
Fine print.
Yeah.
Love you guys. It was a
love
great
you
show.
too, honey. Chris and I have sparred forever.
I'm so lucky. Did you see him? I'm so lucky.
Isn't he hot? Her husband's beautiful.
Saved my life.
He's wonderful. He
Yeah.
truly is. What a sense of humor and a roll with it kind of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Julie's talking about the forgiveness and the misconception of forgiveness. Because what people didn't realize, especially with the situation with my father, is that I forgave my father long before I quit speaking to him. And it was a hard thing to do. And it's one of the things I talk about when I do workshops and stuff is I disconnected the word father from him because society taught us what that expectation is behind that title. And I stopped and looked at him as a person and his experiences in his life, difficulties as well. And I realized that he really did the best he could with what he knew how. And that was forgiveness. And here's the interesting part. He never knew I did it. I just let go of the anger of it, seeing him from an outside box of, wait a minute, he was once, and I teach this, he was once a little boy who grew up with his own struggles and issues. And I knew what his family life was. And then he was a teenager. And then at 18, he was a sailor. He left his family to go, be a Navy man. And then he was a husband. And then if you step back and you look, that everybody around you has been on that journey, and have had their own struggles and what have you. And if you can disconnect the society titles and expectations of what that is and look at that for exactly what it is, you go, oh my gosh, I can see that, you know what, they genuinely did the best they could with what they had in the moment. And in any moment we can change what and who that is. And that's where the forgiveness for yourself is. I never told him, which maybe now he knows, because there's a funny story about that. We'll bring in the metaphysics. Is I hadn't spoken to my father for quite a long time, and about 6 weeks before he passed unexpectedly, Spirit had been pushing me for a while to communicate and have a talk with him, and I did. I called him because I knew I had to. I was really being pushed to as much as I was jumping not to. I just was uncomfortable with it. It had been years, and we had a conversation. I remember hanging up from that conversation and knowing, and I called my cousin and said, my dad's going to pass soon. And she said, oh my God, what happened? I said, nothing, but I knew in the core of me, this was a healing conversation. This was meant to say, don't end it without communication. And like I said, my dad never believed in what I did. And when we were at the hospital, when we knew, because there was it was a routine procedure that went awry 6 weeks later. And we were at the hospital and we knew, and my mom was trying to make the horrible decision I had to make at some point, which was to turn off life support. We were in the lobby and all of a sudden I looked up and saw my father's spirit, and he came out and all he did was salute. Not a word, just saluted. And that was his coming to say, I get it now. I get it now. And my mom has always been very supportive of what I do. And I said, Mom, we need to go for coffee. Go to the coffee machine, because my brother and his family were there too, and they didn't necessarily agree. They don't get it, And as we're walking to the coffee machine, my mom said, he's gone, isn't he? And I said, he just came out and saluted me, Mom. And she said, I could feel it. I knew it. She knew exactly why I was saying we're going for coffee. She felt it. So that's spirit. That's God. That's knowing. My mom doesn't sit around and do readings, for people, but her core felt it. She knew it. She trusted it. And I forgave my dad 5 years before we quit speaking. I forgave my dad before my husband was even sick. I had forgiven him long before that. My husband's death changed my whole life. And that's when I went, enough of this. Enough of trying to please, and enough of trying to be, and enough of trying to do. Enough of all of this. Life is too short. And that's where forgiveness came. And I had to forgive myself for not knowing what I didn't know when I didn't know it.
Right?
You know,
That's really true.
we've all made mistakes. We've all done these things. We all have regrets. We've all had lifestyles and choices. We've all had addictions of some way, shape, or form. We've all had these things. And that is forgiveness, of saying, you know what? I didn't know what I didn't know. And now that I do know, now I choose. And then you choose. Do I live in that? Do I live in the anger? Do I live in the guilt? Do I live in all those things? Or now that I know what I didn't know before, do I decide I'm not going to do that anymore? And you're very popular, Jules. You might have to be a regular.
I would. There's
You
nothing
might do
else.
it once a month or something
Yeah.
with Chit Chat with Lisa and Julie, because you got some people going here.
And here's something interesting, and I think the two of you especially can help Shayna with this. She says,
Yeah.
why is it at one moment we think we have moved on, only to find out you are right back where you started? I get that. Pretty sure it's a me problem, but I wouldn't mind getting off Goofy the ride. What's the deal?
Well, my other part of me says that the first question would be, what am I finding comfort in here? Where is my gain from this? What is my gain from being in this? Or what do I fear from losing?
Right.
What do I fear losing by leaving this?
And you
People
have to,
will remain in chaos because chaos is comfortable if it's all you know.
Yep.
Shayna, you have to understand something too. And this would be my input. Lisa's the professional, but my 2 cents on this, and I always have 2 cents in my wallet, is that you have been doing the same thing. I don't know how old you are, if you're 22 like Lisa and I, or whatever, but you've been doing the same thing for all these years. It takes a long time to break away, and people really get back in. And then you break away a little further, and then you really get back in. I always say when I teach art classes, art is a process, not an event. So is your journey. Don't give up. But Lisa's right. Find out what's bringing you back. Be honest with yourself. Get away from the noise. And maybe you might find out, and just keep trying. Keep swinging. Just keep swinging. Never give up. And always try.
And that's, again, when we go back to faith and belief and those kinds of things, because there's people who have asked me, there's aspects of my life that people don't understand why I remain in, and why I, feel the way I feel about them. And when it gets really, really tough and I'm asked, how will you do this? My response at sometimes has been, because I know this isn't the chapter God said how my story ends. So my faith is saying, I don't know what the hell's going on, and I don't know what I signed up for down here. I've talked on the air before. I have some friends that I tease and say, if we get back up in spirit and I find out you got me drunk to sign this life contract, I'm kicking your ass in spirit. There's going to be a spirit battle up there. But this isn't how my story, we're almost out of time. This isn't how my story ends. And I know this isn't how my story ends. My story ends better than this. So I'm going to keep going. And that's faith to me, at least. That is faith. I don't know how the hell it's going to work out. And I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And I don't know how the ending's going to come. And I don't know how it's going to get better. I only know that it is. And it's going to, because my heart and soul is in the truth of it all and the integrity of it all. So real quick, again, everybody knows how the hell get a hold of me, because they get a hold of me every week when they listen. But Julie, announce yourself, everything about you, and take this last minute to just sell your artwork and your heart that's in it.
Well, I'm Julie Adrianson. I am lucky enough to live in Colorado. I am a pet portrait artist and a wildlife artist. I also do portraits of people and all kinds of different things. But if you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Julie Adrianson Art on Facebook and Instagram, Julie Adrianson Weddings. If you're into weddings and love, all kinds of love on those pages, and visit me on my website, julieadriansonart.com. I'm always, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'm just happy to know everybody and paint animals that I love and people I love. And I love a lot of people.
So now you guys can all know as we end the show here, whenever you hear me say my friend that's walking sunshine, this would be Julie. This is who I'm referring to when I say I have this
Every
friend
day,
walking
though.
sunshine. This is her. So please let's support her. Thank you for coming today, Julie. I love you dearly. I'm wearing the necklace that you sent me when I was having a bad moment. And I'm grateful for. So I wore that special for you today. I was having a bad dark moment, and Julie sent me some sunshine. It's a little dragonfly necklace. So thank you for joining. You may get sucked back in again because people love you. The
I'll
comments
be back.
place about you, and maybe we'll have a chit chat with Lisa and Julie every once a month or something.
I love it.
That would
I'm
be
in.
fun.
Thanks, Donna.
Everybody, have a great day. Enjoy.
Bye.
Talk to you later, Jules. See you at work tomorrow.
Yep. See you working.
All right.